The chill morning air of November 12, 1942, hung heavy with anticipation over Richmond, California. Dawn was breaking, not with a gentle glow, but with the stark utilitarian brilliance of floodlights illuminating the colossal steel skeleton of a cargo vessel. This Leviathan, 441 feet long and a staggering 28,490,000 pounds, poised on its ways, a silent, monumental promise of Allied victory, ready to slice into the tranquil waters of San Francisco Bay. The gates of Permanente Metals Corporation, Yard Number 2, hummed with a suppressed energy, a palpable tension. This was no ordinary launch. This ship, the SS Robert E. Peary, had been assembled in an impossible span, just 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes, an act of industrial alchemy. For centuries since before the nascent whispers of the American Revolution, master shipbuilders had toiled for 6 to 8 months to construct vessels of comparable size. Yet, here it stood, a complete Liberty ship, bristling with purpose, awaiting its christening. 1,000 workers, a diverse, improbable army, stepped back from the vast hull. They were not the grizzled, salt-of-the-earth shipwrights of lore, nor the seasoned maritime craftsmen whose skills were handed down through generations. No, these were former secretaries, their nimble fingers now calloused from welding torches. Farmers, their backs strong from tilling soil, now bent over blueprints. Housewives, whose domestic dexterity had found a new, monumental expression. And laborers, who just weeks prior had been strangers to the searing arc of a welding rod. They had learned their new craft in a blink, driven by an urgent, existential necessity. A hushed yet buzzing crowd had gathered. Stoic officials with furrowed brows, scribbling journalists with feverish pens, and rival shipyard owners, their faces a mask of grudging admiration, perhaps even a hint of fear. They were all here to witness a moment that would not merely mark a ship's birth, but trigger a profound, systemic transformation in industrial production. It was a revolution, born of American manufacturing innovation, its seismic echoes destined to reverberate across decades, forever altering the landscape of industry. The very mathematics of Allied victory, they would soon understand, were being inscribed not in the grand strategies of battle, but in production statistics that would shatter every cherished assumption maritime experts held about shipbuilding limits, construction timeframes, and the very boundaries of industrial possibility. The genesis of this transformation traced back to December 27, 1940. On that fateful day, Henry J. Kaiser, a man who had never laid a keel, never managed a shipyard, whose career had been etched in the epic canvases of moving earth and pouring concrete for the monumental dam projects that tamed the American West, signed his first shipbuilding contract. Yet, here stood this 58-year-old construction magnate, audacious and undaunted, having just pledged to the United States Maritime Commission that he would deliver 30 cargo vessels for the British government within 2 short years. Traditional shipbuilders, their experience a shield against perceived folly, dismissed him as a naive opportunist, a landlubber meddling in a sacred craft. Todd Bath Iron Works, a venerable name, one of America's oldest shipyards, had reluctantly agreed to partner with Kaiser on the project, smugly confident that their centuries of expertise would surely compensate for his glaring ignorance. What none of them, in their rigid adherence to tradition, truly understood was that Kaiser's very lack of shipbuilding experience would prove to be his most formidable, unforeseen advantage. Among the silent observers, a gaunt, intense figure stood out. William Francis Gibbs, America's most revered naval architect, whose firm, Gibbs & Cox, had meticulously crafted the Liberty ship plans based on British designs. He had designed more ships than Kaiser had likely ever even seen, his skepticism a silent professional judgment. The arduous journey from pervasive skepticism to undeniable revolution commenced in the austere planning offices of Todd Shipyards in New York. As Kaiser and his intrepid engineers delved into the labyrinthine procedures of traditional shipbuilding in early 1941, an immediate, stark realization hit them. Conventional methods, steeped in craft and custom, could never, ever meet the ravenous demands of a global war. Kaiser's chief engineer, Clay Bedford, a man with an eye for innovation, had just weeks prior visited a Ford Motor Company assembly line in Detroit. He had watched, mesmerized, as automobile chassis glided down production lines, workers seamlessly installing prefabricated components at each precisely orchestrated station. Bedford had returned to California with a conviction that burned bright. Ships, he declared, could and must be built the same way. The traditional shipbuilders, their faces aghast, considered this comparison not merely audacious, but utterly absurd. The first true shockwave ripped through the established order with Kaiser's radical proposal to eliminate riveting entirely. For generations, traditional ship construction had relied on rivets, heated metal pins, painstakingly hammered through overlapping steel plates to join them in a rigid, watertight embrace. A skilled riveting crew, a symphony of coordinated effort, might install 100 rivets a day. Each Liberty ship, if built conventionally, demanded a mind-boggling 1 million rivets. Kaiser, with the confidence of a man who had tamed the land, proposed electric arc welding instead, a technique he had mastered while constructing the vast pipelines snaking across the American West. Vice Admiral Emory Land, the formidable chairman of the United States Maritime Commission, examined Kaiser's proposal with deep, unconcealed skepticism. His private correspondence, meticulously preserved within the National Archives, laid bare the maritime establishment's horrified reaction. Welding has never been proven reliable for hull construction at this scale. The British Navy forbids welding on warship hulls. Kaiser is proposing we bet America's very supply lines on an unproven technology. Yet Land, a pragmatist despite his traditional leanings, also recognized the creeping tendrils of desperation. German U-boats and predatory surface raiders were systematically sinking Allied shipping faster than traditional shipyards, with their leisurely pace, could possibly replace them. In 1941 alone, a staggering 3.6 million tons of Allied shipping plummeted to the ocean floor from all causes. Britain, an island nation, was quite literally starving. American shipyards, clinging to their conventional methods, required an average of 230 days to build a single cargo ship. At that glacial pace, the Allies would surely lose the Battle of the Atlantic before American industry could even begin to respond effectively. The agonizing decision to approve Kaiser's audacious contract represented not a vote of confidence, but an act of sheer terrifying necessity. The Richmond shipyard, a phoenix rising from empty, unforgiving mudflats, materialized between January and December 1941. Kaiser's construction crews, seasoned by the monumental challenges of building dams and highways, erected a facility that utterly horrified traditional maritime engineers. Instead of the massive, slow-moving gantry cranes and the long, longitudinal building ways that characterized established shipyards, Richmond unveiled something entirely different, something revolutionary. The yard was laid out with the methodical precision of an automobile assembly plant. Vast, open areas dedicated to prefabrication surrounded 7 parallel building ways. A complex web of railroad tracks crisscrossed the facility, specifically designed to transport massive steel sections, some weighing up to 150 tons, with deceptive ease. Towering overhead cranes, capable of lifting entire ship sections, stood sentinel every 100 feet, poised for their colossal ballet. John Riley, the chief naval architect for Bethlehem Steel Corporation, a man whose 3 decades of experience spanned the entirety of modern shipbuilding, visited the Richmond Yard in May 1941. His inspection report, stamped confidential at the time, was a curious blend of technical criticism and grudging, almost pained, admiration. Kaiser has violated every principle of efficient shipyard layout I learned in 3 decades of experience, he wrote. His prefabrication areas are too large. His crane capacity is absurdly excessive. His building ways are too short. Yet, he conceded, the weight of undeniable evidence pressing down, I must admit the facility is designed for exactly what he claims: rapid assembly of prefabricated sections. The arrival of the workers heralded the next phase of this revolutionary change. Traditional shipyards, insular and steeped in custom, typically recruited from established maritime communities where skills were a treasured inheritance passed from father to son across generations. Kaiser, however, threw open the gates. He advertised aggressively in newspapers across America, offering wages a full 20% above standard industrial rates, and most importantly, promising to train anyone willing to work. The first cohorts, a motley but determined crew, arrived in Richmond in August 1941. The simplification of complex, intricate tasks into repeated, simple operations, a concept borrowed directly from the efficiency of assembly line manufacturing, proved devastatingly effective. By October 1941, Kaiser employed over 10,000 workers in Richmond, a staggering statistic, with fewer than 200 of them possessing any previous maritime experience whatsoever. Traditional welders typically endured 4 arduous years as apprentices, meticulously learning a comprehensive, all-encompassing set of skills. Kaiser's instructors, however, taught specific techniques for specific, repeatable tasks in approximately 2 weeks. Workers didn't need to master the entire arcane art of welding. They only needed to know how to perfectly execute the vertical seams on bulkheads, or the horizontal deck plates, or the curved hull sections, tasks they would perform hundreds, if not thousands, of times. As these newly minted workers gained experience through the crucible of late 1941 and early 1942, something utterly unexpected and profoundly significant began to unfold. The construction time for Liberty ships began to plummet dramatically. Kaiser's first Liberty ship, a learning curve made manifest, took 197 days to build and deliver. Ship number 2 required a more efficient 169 days. By ship number 5, the time had shrunk to 128 days. Ship number 10 was completed in a breathtaking 97 days. By the spring of 1942, the Richmond yards were consistently completing Liberty ships in an astonishing 70 days on average. Traditional shipyards, their foundations shaking, watched with growing alarm as this untrained, supposedly unskilled workforce achieved production speeds that not only matched, but often surpassed, their own highly skilled, generational crews. The prefabrication approach, which traditional builders had so blithely dismissed as an unworkable fantasy, now revealed its undeniable power. Instead of building ships painstakingly from keel to deck in a rigid, linear sequence, Kaiser's yards fabricated entire, massive sections simultaneously across the sprawling facility. While one crew meticulously assembled a bow section in a vast prefabrication area, other crews, working in parallel, constructed stern sections, deckhouses, intricate engine rooms, and robust bulkheads. When these monumental sections were complete, massive cranes, like colossal gods of industry, lifted them onto the building ways, where welding crews, with their shimmering arcs, seamlessly joined them together. Albert Wooding, a production supervisor at Richmond Yard No. 2, elucidated this newfound efficiency in a revealing 1943 interview with Fortune magazine. In traditional shipbuilding, he explained, you cannot install the engine until the engine room is built. You cannot build the engine room until the hull is complete. Everything happens in sequence. Kaiser's approach allows parallel production. While one crew welds hull plates, another crew assembles the engine in a separate, open area. When both are ready, we drop the completed engine into the completed engine room and weld it in place. Tasks that previously required weeks now take mere hours. The raw statistics of parallel production unveiled a manufacturing efficiency that seemed utterly impossible to traditional builders. A conventional shipyard might assign 50 workers to the arduous task of installing an engine over 3 weeks, the men toiling in the cramped, often dark confines of a partially complete engine room. Kaiser's prefabrication approach, by stark contrast, assigned 200 workers to assemble the complete engine and its intricate mounting structure in an open, well-lit workshop over 5 days. Then, with breathtaking precision, massive cranes would position the entire fully assembled unit in a single 8-hour operation. Even more disturbing, more unsettling to traditional maritime authorities was the casual, almost cavalier elimination of centuries-old shipbuilding practices. Ships had always been meticulously constructed from painstakingly drafted plans that specified every minute detail, every curve, every joint. Kaiser, however, embraced simplified drawings that provided only basic dimensions, leaving many intricate details to the on-the-spot judgment of the workers themselves. Traditional builders recoiled, labeling this recklessness. Kaiser, with a knowing grin, simply called it flexibility. Vice Admiral Howard Vickery, vice chairman of the Maritime Commission and a career naval officer, initially fought tooth and nail against Kaiser's simplified specifications. His remarkable transformation from staunch skeptic to ardent supporter, meticulously documented in commission meeting minutes, vividly illustrated the undeniable power of results over abstract theory. In January 1942, he declared, "I opposed Kaiser's request to reduce drawing specifications. Ships are not automobiles. Maritime construction requires precision." But by March, the undeniable truth was staring him in the face. Kaiser's yards were outproducing our traditional contractors by 40%. By June, the gap had widened to 70%. I learned that perfection is the enemy of sufficient. Kaiser's ships were not beautiful. They were adequate, and adequate ships delivered more cargo than perfect ships still under construction. As construction speeds escalated dramatically through the spring and summer of 1942, a fierce, exhilarating competition ignited among Kaiser's 7 sprawling shipyards, strategically located across California, Oregon, and Washington. His son, Edgar, a driving and ambitious force who served as vice president and general manager, overseeing all Kaiser shipyards with a particular focus on the 3 Pacific Northwest facilities, managed the Oregon Shipbuilding Corporation in Portland. Clay Bedford, equally ambitious, oversaw the vital Richmond yards in California. The 2 men, both consumed by a competitive fire, began an informal yet intense contest. Whose facility could build ships faster? The nascent rivalry between Richmond and Portland quickly escalated into a public spectacle through the fall of 1942. Newspapers, eager for a feel-good story amidst the grim news of war, published updates like sports scores, tracking the dizzying pace of construction. Records for completion fell repeatedly, almost daily, until Oregon Shipbuilding, in a burst of concentrated effort, built the SS Joseph N. Teal in a mind-boggling 10 days in September 1942. Vice Admiral Vickery, recognizing the potential for distraction, eventually ordered the speed competitions halted, publicly declaring them stunt demonstrations that diverted precious resources from actual production goals. But the competition had already served Kaiser's ingenious purpose. Workers across all 7 yards now believed with an unshakable conviction that extraordinary speed was not merely possible, but indeed expected. November 1942 brought the ultimate, breathtaking demonstration of this new industrial paradigm. Vice Admiral Land, visiting Richmond to inspect the relentless pace of production, made an offhand comment to a group of journalists, a remark casually overheard by the ever-attentive Clay Bedford. The Admiral, ever the professional, acknowledged that Liberty ship construction had improved remarkably, but then, almost as an afterthought, noted that the recent speed record still paled compared to what mass production had achieved in other industries. Bedford, his competitive spirit aflame, took the comment as a direct challenge. He boldly proposed to Vice Admiral Land that Richmond Yard No. 2 would attempt to build a complete Liberty ship, from the laying of its keel to its dramatic launch, in under 10 days, effectively cutting the SS Joseph N. Teal's impressive record in half. Land, perpetually skeptical but undeniably intrigued by the sheer audacity of the proposal, authorized the attempt, but with a strict condition: it must not, under any circumstances, disrupt regular production schedules. Bedford, with meticulous precision, selected the 47th hull to be built at Yard No. 2 for this audacious record attempt. The ship would be christened the SS Robert E. Peary, a fitting tribute to the legendary Arctic explorer, embodying a journey into uncharted industrial territory. Starting at 1 minute past midnight on Sunday, November 8th, over 1,000 workers, operating in carefully coordinated, relentless shifts, would attempt something utterly unprecedented in the annals of maritime history. The prefabrication strategy, the very heart of Kaiser's revolution, reached its ultimate, triumphant expression during the Peary construction. Every major component, every intricate subassembly, had been meticulously built, rigorously inspected, and strategically staged before the keel even touched the building way. The bow section, a complex tapestry of more than 50 individual pieces, had been fully welded and equipped with its anchor hardware, its cavernous chain lockers, and its forward crew quarters long before assembly commenced. The stern section arrived complete with its intricate steering gear, its glistening propeller shaft, and its aft crew spaces. 4 complete cargo holds, each a massive rectangular structure of welded steel, were pre-built and weighted, ready to be lifted into their designated positions with serene precision. Even the engine, a 140-ton triple-expansion steam power plant, deliberately old-fashioned for reliability but immensely powerful, built by WWII Henry Ironworks in Sunnyvale, had been meticulously mounted on its foundation structure and rigorously tested before it even left the factory. Where conventional shipyards toiled for months, building from keel to deck in a slow, sequential crawl, Kaiser's yards assembled a nearly complete ship from these prefabricated sections in a matter of days. Just 4 days into this frenetic yet perfectly orchestrated construction, the hull of the Robert E. Peary stood complete. The massive engine was installed. The deck houses were positioned with architectural grace. The cargo holds were secured, their vast interiors awaiting the sinews of war. The steering gear was mounted, ready to guide its colossal charge. On Thursday, November 12th, at precisely 3:30 p.m., a mere 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes after the keel had first touched the building way, the SS Robert E. Peary, a miracle of wartime industry, slid gracefully, majestically down its steps, launching rails, meeting the waiting waters of San Francisco Bay with a triumphant splash. The ship was not only launched, but delivered for service on November 15th, setting an additional, mind-boggling record of 7 days, 14 hours, and 32 minutes from keel laying to full operational delivery. The throngs of observers, maritime officials, their faces a mixture of awe and disbelief, stern military officers, their uniforms impeccable, competing shipyard owners, their previous smugness replaced by stark astonishment, and journalists from across America, their notebooks filled with frantic scrawl, were all there. Many had arrived expecting to witness either a spectacular failure or, at best, a compromised vessel that looked complete but lacked fundamental functionality. What they witnessed instead was a fully operational ship, requiring only minor fitting out before entering immediate service. Vice Admiral Land, present for the historic launching, made brief, profound remarks, his voice captured for posterity by newsreel cameras. His words, delivered with a sense of humbled recognition, perfectly encapsulated the maritime establishment's forced, undeniable acknowledgement that everything had fundamentally changed. 6 months ago, he declared, his voice resonating across the shipyard, I would have called this impossible. Traditional shipbuilding wisdom, accumulated over 3,000 years, said you cannot build a proper ship in 5 days. Henry Kaiser has made traditional wisdom obsolete. The United States Maritime Commission will now require all contracted shipyards to adopt these methods. The psychological impact on traditional shipbuilders was profound, immediate, and utterly devastating. The same venerable yards that had contemptuously dismissed Kaiser as an ignorant outsider just 18 months earlier now dispatched their top engineers, almost in pilgrimage, to study his revolutionary approaches. The president of New York Shipbuilding Corporation, one of America's oldest and most prestigious yards, visited Richmond in December 1942. His confidential report to his board of directors, a document of ideological surrender, revealed a complete collapse of his previous certainties regarding traditional approaches. Kaiser has achieved what our industry considered impossible by refusing to accept our limitations, he wrote, a sense of wonder in his words. He treated shipbuilding as a manufacturing problem rather than a craft tradition. He simplified where we sought perfection. He standardized where we customized. He trained masses of unskilled workers where we cultivated generational expertise. The result is ships built in 1/10 the time at 2/3 the cost. We must either adopt his approaches or accept irrelevance. By early 1943, Kaiser's undeniable influence had utterly transformed American maritime production. 18 shipyards across the country, once bastions of tradition, were now building Liberty ships using his revolutionary methods of prefabrication and welding. The average construction time, once a languid 230 days, had plummeted to a blistering 42 days by mid-1943. The United States, a nation transformed, was launching 3 Liberty ships daily, a staggering volume of tonnage exceeding anything German submarines could possibly sink. But perhaps the most devastating challenge to traditional maritime authority came from the very quality and composition of Kaiser's workforce. The tens of thousands of women, minorities, and previously untrained workers who had built these ships represented a direct, undeniable refutation of the old guild system that had dominated shipbuilding for centuries, a system based on exclusion and inherited skill. At peak production in 1944, Kaiser's 7 yards alone employed approximately 196,000 workers. Of these, over 40,000 were women, a remarkable percentage of female industrial workers for the era. By mid-1944, women comprised a full 27% of Richmond's production workforce. The 3 Northwest Kaiser yards alone employed over 31,000 women by 1944. African American workers numbered in the tens of thousands, employed in skilled positions including welding, fitting, crane operation, and even supervisory roles, a level of workplace integration utterly unusual and profoundly progressive for 1940s America. The democratization of skilled work that Kaiser enabled carried implications far beyond the immediate exigencies of wartime production. By irrefutably proving that complex manufacturing could be performed with astonishing efficiency by trained workers, rather than requiring decades of generational craft expertise, Kaiser's shipyards challenged fundamental assumptions about labor, skill, and industrial organization that had held sway for centuries. Christmas 1943 provided another powerful, poignant demonstration of Kaiser's transformed industrial culture. While traditional shipyards dutifully observed the holiday with 1 or 2 days off, Kaiser's facilities, driven by the relentless demands of war, maintained full production schedules. But rather than simply demanding work, Kaiser's organization provided heartwarming Christmas celebrations that acknowledged and honored the workers' immense sacrifices. At the Richmond yards, management meticulously arranged for lavish Christmas dinners to be served in the facility cafeterias, with generous portions of turkey, ham, and all the traditional accompaniments provided free to workers on shift. Local churches sent cheerful carolers, their voices echoing through the vast industrial spaces. The Richmond Municipal Band performed, filling the air with festive music. Kaiser himself, a towering figure of industry, visited the yards, personally shaking hands with countless workers and thanking them for their selfless service. By mid-1944, Kaiser's 7 shipyards had produced over 800 Liberty ships, a staggering testament to his methods. But the influence of his approaches extended far beyond his own facilities. The 18 American shipyards building Liberty ships had collectively produced an astonishing 2,400 vessels by this point. Victory ships, a larger, faster, and more advanced design that supplemented Liberty production from 1944 onward, were built using the very same revolutionary prefabrication and welding techniques. The total American maritime production between 1941 and 1945 exceeded 5,500 vessels, representing approximately 53 million tons of shipping. The sheer scale of this production was breathtaking, staggering to contemporary observers, and remains profoundly impressive by modern industrial standards. Commander Joseph Kenworthy of the Royal Navy, assigned to the British Admiralty delegation in Washington, watched American production with a mixture of profound admiration and undisguised envy. His official reports to the Admiralty, declassified in the 1980s, captured the British perspective on this new American industrial dominance with stark realism. The United States is building merchant shipping at a rate that exceeds the combined capacity of the rest of the world, he wrote. Kaiser alone produces more tonnage monthly than the entire British shipbuilding industry. The approaches are crude by Admiralty standards. The ships are inelegant, but they float. They carry cargo, and there are thousands of them. The Royal Navy built the finest warships in the world using traditional craftsmanship, requiring years per vessel. The Americans build adequate ships in weeks. Adequate multiplied by thousands defeats perfection multiplied by dozens. But perhaps the most remarkable, the most enduring aspect of Kaiser's transformation was what happened after the guns of war fell silent. Traditional analysts had universally predicted that the colossal wartime shipbuilding boom would collapse, leaving tens of thousands of workers unemployed and hundreds of costly facilities abandoned to rust. This grim prediction proved partly true. Liberty ship production ended abruptly in September 1945. By December, Kaiser's workforce had plummeted from 200,000 to fewer than 20,000. The once bustling Richmond shipyards, which had employed 100,000 workers at their peak, stood largely empty by the spring of 1946. monuments to a vanished urgency. Yet, the invaluable knowledge developed during that emergency program did not simply vanish into the ether. The prefabrication techniques, the refined welding procedures, and the parallel assembly approaches that Kaiser so boldly pioneered became unequivocally standard practice in global shipbuilding. When Japan and South Korea, rising from the ashes of war, meticulously rebuilt their maritime industries in the 1950s and 1960s, they studied Kaiser's Liberty ship program with fervent intensity and adopted his revolutionary approaches as the foundational bedrock of their burgeoning yards. The massive, hyper-efficient shipbuilding facilities in Ulsan, South Korea, and Nagasaki, Japan, which would come to utterly dominate world shipping construction for decades, were direct, undeniable descendants of the Richmond shipyard's revolutionary practices. John Bunker, a distinguished professor of maritime history at the State University of New York Maritime College, succinctly summarized Kaiser's lasting, indelible influence in his definitive study published in 1972. Kaiser entered shipbuilding as an outsider, Bunker wrote, ignorant of maritime tradition, unconstrained by conventional wisdom, and willing to apply manufacturing principles that the established industry considered utterly inappropriate for ship construction. In 36 months, he built more ships than had been constructed in America during the entire previous century. More importantly, he fundamentally altered how ships would be built worldwide for the remainder of the 20th century. The modular construction, prefabrication, and welded assembly that Kaiser pioneered are now universal standards. Every modern shipyard, whether building colossal container vessels in Korea, gargantuan oil tankers in Japan, or luxurious cruise ships in Europe, uses approaches derived directly from Kaiser's Liberty ship program. The sheer magnitude of Kaiser's achievement can be measured in statistics that reveal both the unparalleled scale of the program and its remarkable, almost miraculous, success. Production statistics show 2,710 Liberty ships meticulously built across 18 American yards between 1941 and 1945, an astounding average of 1.8 ships per day at peak production. Kaiser's 7 yards alone produced an incredible 1,490 ships, comprising a full 27% of total American wartime merchant shipping built under maritime commission contracts. Construction time, once a ponderous average of 230 days for the first Liberty ships in 1941, plummeted to a blistering 42 days by 1943, with the record holder, the SS Robert E. Peary, requiring just 4 days and 15 hours from keel laying to launch. Labor efficiency improved dramatically as workers, through sheer repetition and focused training, gained invaluable experience. The first Liberty ships required approximately 1.1 million worker hours to complete. By 1943, the average worker hours had fallen to approximately 486,000 per ship. Kaiser's most efficient yards, Richmond numbers 2 and 3, achieved construction in as few as 350,000 worker hours by ruthlessly utilizing 3-shift, 24-hour production schedules and relentlessly maximizing prefabrication. Cost efficiency mirrored these dramatic schedule improvements. The first Liberty ships cost approximately $1.75 to $2.0 million each. By 1943, despite rising wages and material prices, costs had fallen to an average of $1.8 million, a testament to improved efficiency and profound learning curve effects. Each Liberty ship displaced 14,245 tons fully loaded and could carry an astonishing 10,800 tons of vital cargo. These versatile vessels could transport 2,840 jeeps, 440 tanks, or 230 million rounds of ammunition in a single vital voyage. Powered by triple expansion steam engines that were deliberately old-fashioned for their unparalleled reliability and ease of manufacture, the ships achieved speeds of 11 knots, perfectly adequate for crucial convoy operations. Training efficiency proved equally remarkable and utterly revolutionary. Kaiser's innovative schools trained workers in highly specific tasks in an average of just 2 weeks. The fastest training programs produced productive spot welders in a mere 10 days. More complex positions like crane operators or ship fitters required 4 to 6 weeks of focused training. This stood in stark contrast to traditional maritime apprenticeships, which often lasted 4 years for basic competency, and a staggering 10 years for master, craftsman status. The key difference was specialization versus comprehensive, all-encompassing training. Traditional apprentices learned all aspects of shipbuilding. Kaiser's workers mastered specific, repeatable tasks that they would perform hundreds of times with unparalleled efficiency. The battle casualty rates among Liberty ships, despite the pervasive skepticism about rapid construction approaches, ultimately demonstrated their undeniable effectiveness. Of the 2,710 Liberty ships built, approximately 200 were lost to enemy action, a loss rate of 7.4%. This compared favorably with pre-war merchant shipping loss rates and irrefutably proved that welded construction, while initially suspect, produced utterly seaworthy vessels. Some ships did experience structural failures due to welding defects. 3 Liberty ships tragically broke completely in half due to brittle fracture problems, representing a minuscule 0.11% of total production. Nearly 1,500 instances of significant brittle fractures occurred across the vast Liberty fleet, but catastrophic, complete breaks were exceptionally rare. These early failures, however, led to rapid improvements in welding procedures and steel specifications that virtually eliminated the problem by 1944. Longevity statistics provided the ultimate, resounding vindication of Kaiser's revolutionary construction approaches. Liberty ships, initially designed as emergency, disposable vessels with expected service lives of 5 years, proved remarkably durable and resilient. Many remained in active service for decades after the war. The SS John W. Brown, built in 1942, remains operational as a vibrant museum ship in Baltimore as of 2024, an astonishing 82 years after its construction. The SS Jeremiah O'Brien, also built in 1942, is meticulously preserved in San Francisco and, in a breathtaking feat of historical preservation, participated in the 50th anniversary commemoration of D-Day in 1994, actually sailing to Normandy under its own power after 5 decades of existence. A third Liberty ship, the SS Hellas Liberty, serves as a static museum ship in Greece, a testament to enduring quality. The post-war careers of Liberty ships extended far, far beyond their designed lifespan. Of the approximately 2,510 Liberty ships that bravely survived the war, approximately 835 remained in commercial service through the 1960s. Many were sold to foreign shipping companies, where they operated reliably into the 1970s, carrying vital cargo across the world's oceans. The SS Albert M. Bow, the very last Liberty ship built and delivered on October 30, 1945, was not scrapped but ingeniously converted. Sold in 1964 for $65,557, it became the pioneering fish cannery ship Star of Kodiak in 1965, and remarkably remains today as the landlocked headquarters of Trident Seafoods in Kodiak, Alaska, still in existence 8 decades after its construction, a silent sentinel to industrial transformation. The profound economic impact of the Liberty ship program rippled outward, fundamentally reshaping American industry. The massive, unprecedented steel requirements drove an enormous expansion of steel production capacity, particularly on the West Coast, where Kaiser, with characteristic audacity, built the Fontana Steel Mill specifically to supply his insatiable shipyards. This monumental mill, completed in 1942, an astonishing 5 months ahead of schedule, produced approximately 700,000 tons of steel annually, and, for the first time, firmly established California as a major steel-producing region. The magnesium required for incendiary bombs and the aluminum for aircraft were also produced in Kaiser plants, built with remarkable speed to support the integrated war production effort. Employment effects, like a benevolent tidal wave, rippled through communities across California, Oregon, and Washington. The city of Richmond, California, a quiet town of 23,000 in 1940, exploded in population to over 100,000 by 1943, driven entirely by the insatiable demand for shipyard employment. Kaiser, with his visionary urban planning, built Vanport City in Oregon, which briefly became the state's second-largest city with a population exceeding 40,000, all of whom worked in the sprawling shipyards or the crucial supporting industries. These boomtowns, while temporary, vividly demonstrated the transformative effect of concentrated industrial investment. Healthcare innovation emerged as an unexpected, yet profound, legacy of Kaiser's shipbuilding program. To provide essential medical care for his massive, rapidly expanding workforce, Kaiser shrewdly partnered with physician Sidney Garfield to establish prepaid healthcare programs that would eventually evolve into Kaiser Permanente, one of America's largest and most influential health maintenance organizations. The model of prepaid, preventive healthcare, so boldly pioneered in the shipyards, deeply influenced American medical practice for decades and served over 12 million members by the early 21st century, a testament to its enduring impact. The workers themselves, the very heart of this industrial miracle, carried forward the invaluable lessons of their wartime experience into decades of peacetime achievement. The shipyards, through their demanding but empowering work, gave thousands of young people, especially women and minorities, unprecedented opportunities to develop capabilities and skills they would never have accessed through conventional career paths. Those opportunities opened doors that stayed open, fundamentally altering the trajectory of their lives. The technological innovations developed during the Liberty Ship program, forged in the crucible of wartime pressure, profoundly influenced industries far beyond maritime construction. The welding techniques, meticulously refined under wartime urgency, became standard in structural steel construction, petroleum refining equipment fabrication, and pressure vessel manufacturing. The prefabrication approaches, so bravely pioneered at Richmond, influenced construction practices in housing, bridge building, and vast industrial facilities. The organizational principles of parallel production, simplified specifications, and rapid worker training became foundational concepts, taught and revered in operations management and industrial engineering education worldwide. Professor Michael Porter at Harvard Business School, in a seminal 1985 study analyzing American industrial competitiveness, identified the Liberty Ship program as a crucial case study in rapid capability development. Kaiser demonstrated that industrial capacity is not fixed but can be created quickly when necessity demands it, Porter wrote. The United States entered World War II with minimal merchant shipbuilding capability. Within 24 months, American yards were producing more tonnage than the rest of the world combined. This proved that industrial infrastructure, workforce skills, and production systems could all be developed at unprecedented speed when properly organized. That lesson has relevance beyond wartime emergency. It suggests that perceived limitations on industrial capacity often reflect organizational and conceptual constraints rather than physical impossibilities. The psychological transformation that the Liberty Ship program ignited among industrial managers and engineers proved as significant, as revolutionary, as the physical ships themselves. Before Kaiser, manufacturing executives largely accepted conventional wisdom about production limits, skill requirements, and organizational structures as immutable truths. Kaiser, with his relentless questioning, demonstrated that conventional wisdom could be profoundly wrong, and that breakthrough performance required not just incremental adjustments, but a radical, fundamental questioning of deeply held assumptions. The Liberty Ship story, in its sweeping scope and profound impact, ultimately stands as a testament to a profound, enduring truth about human capability and industrial possibility. The ships themselves, while absolutely crucial to Allied victory, ultimately mattered less than what their astonishing construction proved. Ordinary people, given focused training and empowering opportunity, could achieve truly extraordinary results. Complex products, previously requiring years of intricate craft tradition, could be manufactured in a matter of weeks using systematized, repeatable processes. Industries, often resistant to change for centuries, could be revolutionized in mere months when the twin forces of necessity and audacious innovation combined. Admiral Chester Nimitz, the revered commander of the Pacific Fleet, reflected on the monumental strategic impact of American maritime production in his post-war memoir, published in 1960. "We fought across 5,000 miles of vast Pacific Ocean," he wrote, his words echoing the immensity of the task, supplied by ships built faster than the enemy could sink them. Japan's military planners assumed American industrial capacity was impressive, but ultimately finite. They believed that if they sank enough ships, eventually American logistics would collapse and we would be forced to negotiate. They failed to account for Henry Kaiser. By 1944, we were replacing shipping losses faster than they could inflict them. The mathematics of attrition favored the side that could build 3 ships daily over the side that could sink 2 ships daily. Industrial capacity, not martial valor, determined the outcome. The Pacific War was won in the shipyards of Richmond, Portland, and Baltimore, as much as on the beaches of Iwo Jima and Okinawa. In the end, Kaiser's greatest achievement was not merely the 1,490 ships his yards so efficiently produced, but the fundamental transformation of what entire industries believed was possible. The SS Robert E. Peary, built in less than 5 days, stood as tangible, undeniable proof that tradition did not always equal truth, that conventional wisdom could be questioned, and that revolutionary improvement absolutely demanded revolutionary approaches. The very maritime establishment that had so dismissively labeled Kaiser an ignorant outsider in 1940 spent decades after 1945 meticulously studying and diligently implementing his techniques. The legions of young workers, many of them women and minorities, who learned to weld and fit and fabricate under the pressing shadow of war, carried those invaluable skills and that newfound confidence into peacetime careers that would collectively rebuild America's post-war economy, shaping industries far and wide. The groundbreaking approaches pioneered under the extreme urgency of wartime emergency became, in time, peacetime standards that profoundly influenced manufacturing across countless industries and around the globe. The story of how one civilian's audacious approach made Liberty ships materialize in days instead of months is at its heart a powerful story of transformation achieved through undeniable demonstration. It proves with irrefutable clarity that the greatest revolutions often emerge from the minds of those unconstrained by the heavy hand of tradition, that true progress invariably requires questioning long-accepted limits, and that human potential, when properly organized and vigorously challenged, consistently exceeds conventional expectations. Kaiser's workers were not some breed of superior humans. They were, in essence, ordinary people achieving extraordinary results because someone, Henry Kaiser himself, believed unequivocally that they could, and then meticulously organized systems that allowed them to magnificently prove it. That profound lesson, so dramatically demonstrated in the bustling shipyards of Richmond, and so triumphantly validated by 2,710 completed vessels, remains acutely relevant wherever industries today face challenges that conventional wisdom stubbornly claims are impossible. The Liberty ships themselves are, for the most part, gone now. Many were scrapped decades ago, their steel repurposed for a new age, or they rest silently on the cold, dark ocean floors, historical artifacts lost to the depths. But the Industrial Revolution they so powerfully represented endures. It persists in every modern shipyard across the globe, a silent tribute to Kaiser's vision. It lives in every manufacturing facility that wisely employs prefabrication as a core principle. It is embedded in every training program that efficiently teaches specific skills quickly, rather than laboriously cultivating broad expertise slowly. And crucially, it echoes in the mind of every discerning manager who dares to question whether impossible truly means impossible, or if it simply means nobody has quite figured out how yet. That, truly, is Henry Kaiser's enduring legacy, a legacy not merely carved in vast quantities of steel, but etched indelibly in the transformed understanding of what dedicated people, when freed from the stifling constraints of tradition and bravely challenged to attempt what the experts claim cannot be done, can ultimately accomplish. From December 1940, when he courageously signed his first contract, knowing absolutely nothing about the complex art of shipbuilding, to November 1942, when the SS Robert E. Peary, a symbol of defiance, launched after less than 5 days of construction, to September 1945, when the last Liberty ship was finally delivered, Kaiser proved, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that industrial revolutions happen not through timid, incremental improvements, but through a bold, fundamental reimagining of what is truly possible. The 2,710 Liberty ships built between 1941 and 1945 carried far more than just vital cargo across perilous oceans. They carried within their very hulls the unassailable proof that human ingenuity, when unshackled from the chains of tradition and powerfully empowered by the relentless force of necessity, can indeed accomplish the seemingly impossible, reshaping the world in the process.